Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Tamara Beckford Show. Alrighty, today I am very excited to talk about all of us who are in the medical field who are thinking of building solo non-clinical careers. If you're thinking about this is the show for you. We're talking about medical malpractice. Yes, medical malpractice. When we think about all that goes on, that's always one of the biggest fears that us in the clinical world have, right? Like, I'm doing my
Yep.
best. What if I get caught? Oh, and then we also have those who are in the legal field. They're out there and they need the best of the best represented. And we're going to talk about that today on this wonderful show. Now, before we go any further, I know some of you are like, oh, there we go, Dr. Beckford. She always does that. She's going on and she knows that I have to do XYZ. And I say, have no fear. This wonderful episode will be available on our Your Caring Docs website, URCARINGDOCS.com. Click podcast. You see my guest, handsome face. Download that episode and you'll get all the juice. If you want to be on the show, send me an email at drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com and we'll try to get you in. All right. So without further ado, let me introduce our wonderful guest for today. So, our guest is a graduate of the University of Missouri School of Medicine. He did his residency in emergency medicine.
Ta-da.
Woo-hoo! At Carolina Medical Center. He's had over 20 years of experience in clinical medicine, from like high acuity trauma centers to rural access hospitals. With all of his knowledge and expertise, he decided to zone it all in into providing consulting services for malpractice attorneys, offering strategic collaboration and expert matching with witnesses, right? He is the owner and lead consultant of On Call MedLegal Consulting. I'm talking about the esteemed, the one, the only Dr. Jeff Willis. Woo! Hello, 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 Dr. Willis. How are you?
I'm spectacular. How about yourself?
I'm doing wonderful, as you can hear by my chipper voice.
I'll try and match your energy. I don't know that I can, but I'll do my best.
Hey,
I've got
that's
my
okay.
ice. I've got my iced tea here, so we'll see
You
if we
got
can
you
pull it
got
off.
your you have your iced tea or you have your sweet tea. Let's be honest. Is it the
No,
sweet tea?
it is unsweet tea. Now
Is your
that said, that said, I did my training in North
exactly?
Carolina, so I have a little bit of South in me. So every now and again, I will splash a little of the sweet tea in with the
There
regular.
we
But
go.
yeah.
Love it, love it, love it. Alrighty, so before we get deep into what you're doing right now, let's take it back a few years to when you decided to do medicine. So tell us the story that drew your interest in becoming a doctor.
That's kind of you to say a few years. It was a lot. It was a lot of years, but uh, I wish I had a more. So so many people have these compelling stories, right? Like I
Mhm.
was sick as a child, or I had a family member who was sick, or this person inspired me. My story of getting into medicine was pretty generic, honestly. I was good in school, right? Made great
Mhm.
grades. Science was my favorite subject, and literally just had a teacher in high school say you should probably be a doctor. And this was back in the 90s, right? I'm
Mhm.
a Gen X kid, so I graduated high school back in 95. And back in the 90s, if you got good
Mhm.
grades, you were pretty smart, and you like science, you usually became a doctor or something along those lines. And so,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the options weren't, there weren't a lot of other options, or at least you weren't told about them. And so that's what I did. I said, all right, I'll be a doctor. And so I went to college, and you know how it is, man. You check the boxes, right? You get the grades, you get the test scores, you do
Yes.
your volunteer work, you work in a lab, or you do whatever you need to do. You check all the boxes, and then you start applying, and that's it. We every single one of us did it. Every
Yes.
single one of us checked the boxes,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Yep, yeah, right. And so I checked all the boxes, and uh, no regrets. I mean, I'm glad I did. I couldn't imagine doing
Mhm.
anything else. So.
I love it. And I love how you're talking about the boxes and the flow because I think about during the years when we were applying. I'm the same generation, the same boxes were checked. Now I'm thinking about the boxes of these newer incoming students, their boxes are like, whoa. We're like, wait a minute, so you started up a whole thing, and their boxes are so much
Mhm.
longer than ours, but the process is the same, in that the sentiment of wanting to help, wanting to care, wanting to have an impact on the world, which is one of the other boxes why we took so much time to
Right.
get to the point. Yeah. To train and to do this. So before we got to be this big doctor, we're now in med school, but you decided, of all the specialties, that you wanted to do emergency medicine. So tell us a little bit about that. How did you fall onto that specialty?
Yeah, so it's that actually is a somewhat interesting story, because I'm probably one of the few emergency physicians who initially, believe it or not, I wanted to be a geriatrician. So
Me
I
too.
really, okay, maybe I'm
Yes.
not unique. Yeah,
No,
so
it was between.
right, yeah, so I went into medical school thinking, I want to be a geriatrician. I like the elderly. I want to help them. And so, the best way to do that really was to go into family practice, or
Mhm.
internal medicine somewhere. And so, between my first and second years of medical school, I did a program. It was called AHEC, the Area Health Education Council. Basically, you get to shadow a physician
Mhm.
for an entire summer.
Mhm.
So I shadowed this physician in Max Creek, Missouri, which probably has a population of 200 or 300, like tiny little
Wow.
old, like super small town doc,
Mhm.
named Jim Jungles.
Oh.
They called him Jungle Jim. And he was the classic small town doc. I
Mhm.
showed up in his office every morning. Um, he lit up a Salem cigarette in his office, and by the time he got done smoking the Salem cigarette, the nurses would have all the rooms full for his patients.
Mhm.
We'd go see all the patients, come back, he'd light up another cigarette while they cleared that batch out, and we did the next, and we did that all summer long. And I learned a ton. The guy was brilliant, right? Just
Of course.
yeah. Small town doc, brilliant guy. But he was one of those guys that couldn't sit still. So on the weekends,
Mhm.
he would moonlight in the emergency department at Lake
Oh.
Regional Hospital in Missouri. So it was a bigger ER. It was
Mhm.
like a vacation, like summertime, like
Oh,
a
okay.
lake town kind of thing, right? So it got busy in the summer, so they needed help back then. This was a long time ago. Anyway, so I shadowed him there too. So I'm like, what the heck? I got nothing to do. I'm down here in the middle of nowhere, and so
Mhm.
I shadowed him in the ER, and just fell in love. I'm like, wait a minute, this is what I need to do, because this
Yeah.
is interesting. This is exciting. This is, you know, fast paced. I get to see absolutely everything.
Everything.
And so, I mean, it was a month later. I'm like, nope, this is what I'm doing. And so I went into emergency medicine. And back then at the University of Missouri, there was no emergency medicine program at all.
Mhm.
So it was not a specialty that was promoted in the medical school very much. It was a very much primary care focused medical
Mhm.
school. And so it was difficult to find mentors, or find any way to get into emergency medicine. You had to almost do all your rotations away. So but
Oh.
that was it. Yeah, Jungle Jim,
The
moonlighting
intro.
in the ER,
Wow.
is how I found emergency medicine, and never looked back. Went and did clerkships at Carolinas and up at Hennepin, and just
Mhm.
realized, yep, this is it, and
This is it.
yep, never looked back.
How's Jungle Jim? Is Jungle Jim still here with us?
I don't think so. I think he finally passed away, but he worked. I mean, he worked all the way up, through his years. He was a
Mhm.
great guy. Drove an old Corvette. Had a boat he would take me out on. He was also like the county medical examiner. So like
Examiner.
when something happened, we would have to drop it and go out to it. I mean, the guy was great. The guy was
Oh,
great. So
wow.
yeah,
This is such a wealth of knowledge, and like, in such a short span when you're there shadowing him. If you really
oh my
sit and
gosh,
think
yeah, it was
about it.
like two and a half months. I learned so much, and more than
Oh.
anything, just how to care for people, right? I mean,
Mhm.
just his patients loved him. I mean, just absolutely loved him. Yeah. But little did I know, going into emergency medicine, turns out I am a geriatrician, right? I mean,
Yes, that's it.
So
That's why.
yeah, you don't realize it. Like when you get out of residency and you start working out in,
Hmm.
in the real world, so to speak. Oh, hey, that is like 90% of what we do anyway. So I still got to do my geriatrics and then do the more exciting stuff on the side.
Absolutely. And that's one of the things that I love. While I was in med school, rest assured, I went into med school thinking like I'm going to do emergency medicine because I got exposed during undergrad. But while I was doing a rotation, the geriatric population kept pulling me. I was like, they're so wise. They know so much. They can impart so much knowledge. So I almost got pulled, but I said, okay, I'm sticking with emergency medicine. And like you said, I still end up doing geriatrics.
Absolutely do
Still
every
get
single
those
day.
lovely patients. Yes, the feisty ones. Oh,
Oh yeah.
yes. Love it, love it, love it. Alrighty, so now you're there, emergency medicine. You graduated from residency, did all your training, and then you're out now working, as we mentioned, still doing geriatrics in some respect. So getting that feel for, part of what we do love. Now, you've had over 20 years experience in that. Tell us through, some of the experiences that you've had and what led you from there to forming this wonderful company, the On-Call MedLegal Consultant.
Yeah, sure. So I came back after residency. I came back to Missouri, lived in St. Louis for a couple of years, and worked at a level 2 trauma center,
Mhm.
which is an odd bird in and of itself because the community and ambulances, they pretty much treat you like a level 1
Level
trauma center.
one.
You just don't quite have the backup, right? So
Yes.
and so I learned a lot there just by being thrown in and suddenly working basically solo
Hmm.
without nearly as much backup as you would think. But then I also learned a lot about the business of medicine because I got into this job where the relationship with administration and the ED group was kind of a mess. And basically, in my first 2 years, the entire group sort of dissolved, and everybody just
Mm.
went off out into the community and got different jobs.
Wow.
And I wasn't from the area, and I was too young and dumb to understand what was happening when it was happening. And next thing you know, I'm sitting there looking around like it's like me and like three other guys,
Like
left
crickets.
here. Like yeah, and like what am I going to do? All the other jobs, are dried up. So I only
Hmm.
lasted my first job for a couple of years, which is pretty typical. A lot,
Yeah.
most ED folks don't stay in their first job for more than a couple of years. That's pretty standard. So
Hmm.
came down to Springfield, went to a level 1 trauma center with a big group, and was there for 10 years and was very happy.
Hmm.
And for the last 5 of that, I was actually the medical director for
Hmm.
level 1 trauma center, which was probably not probably
Ooh.
it was the hardest job I ever had. Right?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So navigating, being an advocate for your physicians and an advocate for the patients, but also the health system and
Hmm.
navigating all those political waters and seeing how the sausage is made and all that. So I did that for about 5 years. Got my MHA during that time as
Hmm.
well, and then finally decided that my energy was going to be better spent elsewhere
Hmm.
because sort of battling the big system kind of spinning your wheels sometimes. So I thought,
Yeah.
I thought my energy could be spent elsewhere. So I left and went to go work at a rural critical access hospital. So I
Mm.
went from level 1 trauma center, 90,000 visits a year, to a 6-bed ER working 24-hour shifts,
Hmm.
literally in the middle of nowhere.
Yes.
Uh, and did that, and then started an ER staffing company just shortly before COVID with a couple of my
Hmm.
partners, which was great. And we staffed some ERs around the area, and then COVID hit, and so the expansion of our group just it came to a screeching halt
Hmm.
because hospitals weren't changing ED groups, and everybody was in just protection mode, right?
Crackdown mode. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And in retrospect, I think that was good because I didn't love that work and the
Hmm.
corporatization of medicine. I was becoming a part of it, I think,
Hmm.
and decided I didn't really like that. So we wound that up. And then here I am, right? That was my plan, right? To build this big ER group, and that was going to be it. And now here I am sitting, I was now sitting in a 6-bed rural critical access hospital, wondering what I was going to do with the rest of my life.
Yes.
uh, and uh, and so uh, just started exploring everything that was out there, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, I mean, I don't know who's watching this. If there's ED physicians out there watching, thinking
Oh yeah.
what else is out there, or I know you do so much burnout work. If you have a big burnout crowd, um, I, I don't like that term burnout. I don't think that's where I was, but I realized that there was more I could do, and that
Mm-hmm.
my time in clinical work was done. And so rather than just make a rash decision, I gave myself a year to figure out how I can still serve,
Mm.
but also do something different that I'm going to want to do for another 20 years. Because I
Yeah.
knew I was done with emergency medicine. My time there was done. 20 years was enough. But I still wanted to serve, and I still wanted to do something that was going to make me excited and interested for another 20 years of work.
Absolutely.
Yep. So I basically made it my job to figure out what to do next. So got a life coach,
Mm-hmm.
which I highly recommend anybody listening, watching, doing, or, participating today. Like I was a naysayer, admittedly.
Yeah.
I spent months trying to figure things out on my own, because that's what we do, right? We're ER doctors. You
Absolutely.
figure it out. And
We're like
I,
MacGyver.
yeah, right. Yeah. And I remember just sitting there one day, spinning my wheels like everybody else, looking at the, LinkedIn want ads, and, listening to podcasts. What am I, I realized, you know what? There's people out there that can help. And so I
Mm-hmm.
hired a life coach. It's not even, he hates to be called a life coach. That's not really what he is. Not related to medicine at all.
Mm-hmm.
Joined sort of a cohort mastermind, whatever you want to call it, of random people all across the country.
Mm-hmm.
None of whom were in medicine except me,
Mm-hmm.
and just started exploring everything in the world that was out there. And I discovered opportunities in the medical legal world. Took a course that it didn't teach what I do exactly, but it sort of taught you how to think about how medicine
Mm-hmm.
and the law interact, and basically just toyed around with different ideas and realized that there was a niche here that needed to be filled that nobody was filling.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've spent the last year growing it. And as of October last year, I'm doing it full time now. So
Love
I've
it.
stepped completely away from clinical work, and now I'm doing this, doing it full time. So
Wow. Wow. If you really think about like that whole transition, you go from working clinically, and I love the fact that you've really given us an idea of how our career paths, it changes from different phases to the other. Because when you really just come out of residency, you're very, very excited. It's your first job, but the landscape that you enter into might not even be the best for you, but you will never know
correct.
because you're naive to this whole process.
Yep.
And when you're there, you're just doing your best. You're getting experiences under your belt until you recognize and you can say, okay, well, this obviously is not for me. Then you move from that to an area where you are in, when you mention a level one trauma center. So for those who are listening, watching, not in medicine, what Dr. Willis did was he went from a facility that, yes, he's seen traumas, but then there's facility where all the big traumas come to, where anything, like if you're a level one trauma center, a lot of times helicopters are dropping off patients from other places to your facility, like the worst of the worst, because you have all the specialties that are there, so you're getting everything. So not only did Dr. Willis work there, but he was also the medical director, so he's in charge of connecting the A's to the B's. So the ER's connection to the rest of the hospital all went through Dr. Willis. So that's a big task at hand. You learn a lot. So not only are you doing things clinically, but you're also dealing with a lot of administrative things. And as you mentioned, how our specialty and how our department helps in the wheel of healthcare. That's basically what you're navigating. What's best for your team, also what's best for the patients, and what's best for the hospital at the same time. Sometimes it's hard to get all three to line up. And it's just be real.
Sometimes,
Yeah,
sometimes.
sometimes it's hard to get all three to line up. But you are the one that bears a lot of the brunt of this. So after 5 years of doing that, you stepped out, and then you went to a rural hospital. So when people hear rural access care hospital, you might be thinking like, oh, well, now not only all the specialties that you had the backup for, you no longer have the backup. You are the backup.
You are the backup.
You are the backup. So no, I'm not going to be able to call urology to put in the suprapubic catheter. I got to figure this out. So
Yep.
you are the backup. So that's, another level of really high intensity. And from there, you decide that you're building a staffing company. And then the climate changed. The pandemic came around. And with that, the need that was there before the pandemic wasn't as prevalent then, and you dissolved the company and found yourself. Now, that year that you took to really sit and find what you want, how would you describe that year to someone? When like, what were some of the emotions that went through in that year off? Because not a lot of people have the ability to take a year off. Some people are just like, but for those who do have it, what would you say that your emotions were through that time to build up the Dr. Willis, who's now lead consultant in this
Well,
wonderful
I mean, maybe
practice?
for some clarity, I mean, I was
Mhm.
still working full time during that year, so I mean, I didn't take it off. It was just
Ah,
but it was
a
my everything.
mental time off, I
It was
guess.
my mission. Like
Mm-hmm.
my hobby was figuring out what I'm going to do with my life.
Mm.
Everything revolved around getting healthy, both mentally and physically,
Mm-hmm.
and talking to anyone that would listen, learning from anyone that I could, being open and honest with my family about where I was, because
Mm-hmm.
um, you have this sort of unwritten or mental contract that you have with your spouse or your family, right? Of
Yes.
I make the money, I'm the provider, and this is my role. This is my role, right? And if you reach a
Mm-hmm.
certain point in your career where that's not the side of this unwritten contract that you want to have, you need permission's a terrible word. My wife hates it when I use it, but
An
you need,
agreement.
right, you need to have a conversation about that contract,
Yes.
because what you'll find, and for however many burned out folks are listening right now, um, what you think that they think, someone's trying to call me, I'm sorry, what
Mm-hmm.
you think they think, probably not true. So
Yeah.
they want you to be fulfilled. They want you to be the present,
Mm-hmm.
happy, engaged family member. That the fact that you make the living for the family is not what they care about, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there were a lot of mental transitions that go on with that, and then more than anything, learning that the golden handcuffs that we always talk about, right? I can't leave medicine because I have this bill and that bill, and I can't. That's such a false. It's such a false ideology, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if you take the time and you make a plan, you can find your way.
Mm-hmm.
You can find your way. So I mean, I took 100% pay cut to stop working clinically and to figure this out. But you
Mm-hmm.
can't do it without planning, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you got to plan, right? You got to
Absolutely.
plan. You got to get everything set up to do it, but it can be done. So
Mm-hmm.
um, I know in a lot of the teaching and work that you do, you like to help folks understand how they can be happier and more fulfilled while doing while still doing the job that they do.
Absolutely.
Right, you're right, and that's huge. I didn't have that, but I made the decision. I'm just going to do something else entirely,
Mm-hmm.
and that's an option, right? That's an option.
Yes.
If you realize that your time somewhere is done, accept it, and then make it your job to figure out how you can still serve and how you
Mm-hmm.
can live another 20 years happy and healthy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but it's a journey. It's a process for sure. But I've never been happier in my life than I am today, without
Love
question.
it.
Yeah.
And you, as you mentioned, what's the important portion is that you have to really plan this next phase in your life. Sit and plan it, sit and think about what's going on, and come up with a plan, and then work your plan little by little. And
Hmm.
you'll find that joy there. It's not to say that you're just taking, like, making rash decisions unless like you're forced to, but being able to plan it out helps to ease some of the discomfort and then help you to find that joy. Because when you're planning, you're not just planning you're planning based on a lot of criteria that are important to you personally. Where
Right.
when you think
Yes.
about it, right? When you
Yeah.
think about it earlier, a lot of us, when we were making the decisions to go into the careers we went into, we didn't have this wherewithal to, because we were like 17.
Right. Yeah. 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 Right. Medicine is that, like, that one career where you're 18 years old and you have to decide what you're going to do for the next, like, 50 years of your life,
Yeah,
because once you get down the path,
you look around.
it's hard to go back because you've got so much money and time invested, and you're trained to do nothing else, or at least that's what they
Yes,
tell us.
exactly,
But it's not necessarily
exactly.
true, right?
No, no. So we have options. So now I love it. So you've gotten to the point now you've recognized I have options. And not only that, I have skills that
Hmm.
are skill sets that are needed, skill sets that are for those who are out there. It helps, and I can still contribute to society and to those in the medical field. So once that realization came aboard, then you formed this wonderful company. So tell us, what is it that your company does and how you've been able to serve those so far?
Right. So I work collaboratively with medical malpractice physicians, both plaintiff and defense,
Hmm.
um, basically helping them understand the medical aspects of their cases. So,
Hmm.
for those that aren't aware, there's a big industry of what are called legal nurse consultants,
Yes.
and they're nurses that work either in attorneys' offices or on a contract basis, where they'll get a medical malpractice case, whether it be on the plaintiff or defense side, and they'll go through and they'll develop a chronology of what happened during the case, help them understand maybe what experts might be needed, and sometimes we'll even try and give opinions on like physician standard of care, but
Hmm.
as a nurse. And there's a massive industry around that. On the physician side, there's a big industry around expert witness work. Okay,
Hmm.
so expert witnesses get paid a lot of money to provide opinions on medical malpractice cases, both for the plaintiff and the defense, as they should. It's a lot of work. I mean, it's hours and hours and hours of work
Hmm.
for these cases, but on both sides. That said, there's really no business or niche in between those two extremes. So
Hmm.
an expert witness that is a testifying expert that has to go to depositions in court and has to be a practicing clinician. So to be an expert witness, you still have to be practicing, right?
Hmm.
Um, and then you have on the other end nurses that are providing opinions on physician standard of care, which some of them are experienced enough to do that, and some of them aren't. And then in the middle, you have attorneys trying to figure out, do I spend four or five thousand dollars on an expert to tell me whether I have a malpractice case I should pursue or not,
Hmm.
or do I trust the opinion of a non-physician to tell me whether a physician breached the standard of care? So
Hmm.
um, on the plaintiff side, what I do is I work with the medical malpractice physicians, and they have cases that will come in, and it'll pass their initial sniff test, and they'll say, "This
Hmm.
sounds like it might be something, but I just don't know." And they'll send
Hmm.
me the records, and I look through everything. I'll look through
Hmm.
thousands of pages of records, and then simply have a phone call with the attorney, and say, hey, here's what happened. Yes, this physician clearly breached the standard of care, and yeah, you have a case. Or this is just bad luck. This is something that happened.
Hmm.
You need let your client know that you can't pursue the case.
Right.
And that's primarily what I do 90% of the time, with 90% of my time. And I know you have a lot of physicians that watch your show, and you're a physician, so I'll catch grief for what I do sometimes, right? Because I work
Yeah.
with, I work with plaintiff attorneys, and so when I got into this work, I didn't quite understand how few medical malpractice cases actually move forward. So for every, let's say 100 cases come into an attorney's office, whether it be by phone call, chat, referral, whatever it is. About 90 of those 100, just based on the call that comes in, they filter out and can tell you, no, there's no case there. So now you have 10 left out of that 100. They'll look into them a little bit more carefully, and out of those 10, they usually take one. So of the 100 calls that come into an attorney's office, they really only take one.
Right.
And so part of my mission and what I do is I want to get as many physicians involved in that process up front as possible to help them identify those very few cases out there that are truly malpractice, because there's not that many, right? They exist, right? But I feel it's important for physicians to be involved in that process and help them understand what's legitimate and what's not.
What's not.
And so, and there's just really nobody else out there doing this. There are people that dabble in it, and then there are a few that do it full time. But I'm the only person I know of that's still a licensed, boarded physician that's doing this work full time. And I think more should. I just think it's helpful to the attorneys and really helpful to the patients to do it. So then on the defense side, I do similar work, but the defense doesn't have a choice in what cases come at them, right? If you have a defense attorney, they're the ones getting sued. They don't get to choose which ones they defend. Right. So I work with my defense attorneys to help them understand the true strengths and weaknesses, because every physician, we're all going to say, I did nothing wrong. I was within the standard, right? So I help them understand, if that's the case, how they can best defend it, or hey, if there's things you really need to worry about, and there were things that were missed. Here's your weak spots. How do you navigate around those? Because I'm an equal physician and patient advocate both. So I like to work with both attorneys equally. But that's pretty much what I do. And then if it's a case that moves forward, then I help them identify expert witnesses that can review the case and testify on behalf of the plaintiff or defense.
So if you have a physician that's out there who is thinking about what you're doing, are you taking on those physicians to come and to like train, to be part, to think like, hey, this is how one would think about these cases, and yes, you can work and be part of my team to help these legal services, to help the lawyers to understand and to filter out the yes versus the no, the true malpractices versus this is just bad luck, bad day, would have happened no matter who saw this person,
So the answer is yes, but not yet. So as my mission, my mission statement for the company is to transform the role of physicians in the medical malpractice litigation process. That's my mission. I'm only about a year into it, so but my growth trajectory is pretty high. I'm in 10 different states now across the country. So I seem to be adding about another state every month of clients. So it's starting to grow pretty quickly as the concept spreads. So my goal at some point is to do one of two things, and it's still in process, trying to figure out how I'm going to be most effective. One being bring more physicians onto my team to help manage cases. So, if I have, a surgeon on the team, like a general surgeon on the team, ED physician on the team, a family practice physician on the team. So when cases with those specialties come in, I can provide even a higher level of service for the clients.
Absolutely.
That's one option, which I think is probably going to be the best, simply because it will allow physicians to continue to do their clinical work, but make some money on the side, and do something that's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other opportunity, which I'm still exploring, is to teach others what I'm doing so that they can go out and do it on their own, independently. The issue with this, and as you know, you have to market and advertise yourself every day, right? So
Yes.
the work is not hard. I love reviewing charts. I love speaking with the attorneys. I love doing the research, and I love that part of it. That part's easy because I know it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But owning a solo business where you're the consultant, where you're the marketer, where you're the
Mm-hmm.
the
Everything in
tech
between.
guy, you're the CFO, you're whatever it is, you're it, right?
Yes.
That's a lot of work. So the
Mm-hmm.
barrier to entry for this particular field is not so much the work itself.
Mm-hmm.
Within a couple months, you can learn the legalese, you can learn, all the factors that, or all the criteria that are necessary to be malpractice and how everything fits in. It doesn't take too long to learn that part, right? The barrier to entry is marketing and getting in front of attorneys, sharing what you do,
Mm-hmm.
networking. That's your barrier to entry. And so someone working full-time clinically will have a really difficult time doing that, effectively. As I'm sure you work full-time clinically, and I mean, I don't know when you sleep with everything that you do.
No, but as you mentioned, that is the part of being a solo practitioner that one has to think about. You are the marketing team, and marketing is really telling others what you do, right? I think one of my coach said that when you start to get bored of your message, that means that you just started. Because now there's now they probably just heard it. So it's really time
Yeah.
for you to amp it up. So you have to tell everyone near and far, far and wide what it is that you do. So the marketing part is part of it. Now, there's also an aspect to this your story that we talked about. We touched on it a little bit, which is about the burnout portion. Now, a lot of those who are listening have really had some experience with burnout. Some people are in it and trying to figure out, is this it? I don't know, is this it?
Right.
But how
Yep.
would you say, how did burnout look like for you when you were in that valley? What did it look like? Like, how is it that now you can look back and say, oh, that's what that was?
Yeah. I mean, I went through different stages of it.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, I would say probably, and like I said, I hate the term burnout.
Yep.
I just do. I do. And I know you have to use it because it's what everyone understands, but
Yes.
for me, it implies this like finite amount of fuel that we have as physicians. And like when it's gone, you're burned out and you're done.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not true, right? I mean,
Correct.
you can always refill, right? There's always a way to put the fuel back in,
Yes.
and drive somewhere else, right? But for me, it was two things. Um, One was sort of physical and health wise,
Mm-hmm.
and you find yourself, instead of maybe having one cocktail with dinner, you find yourself maybe having two or three that night for no particular reason, and it's like a
Mm-hmm.
Tuesday,
Yeah.
or you had your coffee in the morning, and then you had your energy drink at noon, and then you had your iced tea in the afternoon, and then you look back and realize, no, I haven't been to the gym in 3 weeks, and why haven't I? And then I don't care,
Mm-hmm.
and so there was the physical aspect, and then there was the sort of mental and emotional aspect, where you realize you're being short with your spouse, or you're being short with your kids, or
Mm-hmm.
your kids have something that they're super excited to show you, and you just don't care, right? You're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, yeah, great, yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah, that
oh, I have
energy.
to go to another play tonight. Ugh,
Yeah.
and 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 I realized it's not me, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
not who I am. And so that, I don't even know how to say it. I guess that came and went, right? That came and went, and it comes and goes with
Mm-hmm.
all of us. And I think that's how we lie to ourselves sometimes too, because we'll have a few good weeks and be like, oh, I got this kicked, right? Great, everything's good. And then it might not take anything to just kind of flip you back and have you hating life
Mm-hmm.
again, and
Yeah.
it might just be that, might be one day and then you're right back. And then 3 weeks later, like, oh, things are good. I've had a vacation. Everything's fine. And so it's a real, sinusoidal
Mm-hmm.
wave, ebb and flow sort of thing. But you just trick yourself enough that you can just one more day, one more week, or, let me get to
Yeah.
that next paycheck, or, oh, they said this is going to be better at work, or, whatever it is. But
I like
um,
that point that you're making because a lot of times we talk about, and I think you're probably one of my first guests that's answered the question in this way. Um, and we all talk about ebbs and flow, but when you talk about how you trick yourself because you're feeling a certain way and then you have a day that's good and you're like, oh yeah, everything's great, but as you said, it takes something very subtle, not even something big, to flip you back into that phase. So that's how you haven't truly emerged from it. It
right,
was just like that one good day, that ebb and flow. But if you were to pull that graph out overall, right, we're at like we're below the red line. We're not really in the black.
yeah,
But that one day here and there might make you feel as if things are going, but overall you're just not feeling at your best. And like you said, certain things you're not having the energy and the enthusiasm for it. And I think that's a great way to really describe it, because some people might get into that 1 or 2 days and like, oh, well, maybe this isn't burnout, or this isn't moral injury, or this isn't
yeah,
all the other terms that we use. But when you said, if you really were to do a bird's eye view or to zoom out on it, like, well, what are we talking about the majority of the time? How are you feeling the majority of the time? Not that 1 to 2 days
yeah,
that you had that spike.
right.
So that's a great and interesting way of describing it for those who are in that thing. Alrighty, so now I have my fun question of the day. I had to
Okay.
really sit and think about it for you. Alrighty. So if you weren't a doctor, weren't doing the medical legal, if you weren't Jungle Jim, and you were and let me see, we didn't really talk. Okay, so yeah, you weren't doing any of those. What would you do, and what would you be?
Oh man. So if you had asked me that, if in college said, hey, you can't be a doctor, you need to be something else.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think I'm almost certainly I would have gone into engineering,
Ah,
or because I love math, and I love physical science, and I think I definitely would have been some variety of an engineer, just because
nice.
I love building and tinkering
That's what I was
tinkering with
thinking.
things.
Yes.
Yeah, I absolutely
Are
love
you the kid
building
that
and
pulled the clock apart in the house and the mom's looking like, and you're like, I can put it back together, ma?
yeah, a little bit. My son is for sure. My son is. You buy him the Lego set, and he puts it together and looks at it, and about 5 minutes later, he's like, no, and rips it apart and builds something else. So I think it's in the blood. I
It's in the
probably,
blood. It's in the
yeah,
Willis
yeah.
blood.
Yeah, so I probably back then I would have said
An engineer.
an engineer for sure. Now, honestly, I would probably if you said, hey, you can't do any of this stuff at all,
Yes.
it would probably involve something to do with uh, like land management and land real estate and recreational land and real estate, because I'm a
Ah.
big I spend a lot of time outdoors, a lot of time hiking, a lot of time
Hmm.
hunting, like to hunt
Hmm.
whitetail deer and turkey. I have a small property that I manage for whitetail deer and turkey for the
Nice.
family. And so I would probably do something in that industry just because I absolutely love being outside.
I thought you would say, I'm looking at the instrument behind you. I thought you'd be playing.
Oh yeah, no, that's my banjo. Yeah, I
Is it
started playing banjo.
banjo?
Yeah, I started
Like,
playing banjo about 4 or 5 years ago, so I'm kind of addicted to that too. So,
but then
and in
that's
the
how you're
last
on the
year or so,
property. And now I'm seeing the hat. I'm seeing the property. I'm seeing the
yeah, you're seeing me
furniture.
on the porch.
I see you on the porch. Oh, just really enjoying life.
Yeah, I know you wouldn't think it, but I'm a country boy at heart. It's just I
I
can't
love
help
it.
it.
I love it, love it. Alrighty, so we have those who are listening and those who are watching Dr. Willis, and we have those who now even found out, like, whoa, this is a thing. As you mentioned, you want
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
spread the word to those in the medical field that there are additional things that you can do with your training. You're still contributing to the clinical and medical society as a whole. You're helping with patients and with your colleagues, and but you're doing it from the medical legal standpoint. So how can those people find you? And
So
yeah, even like the lawyers, those who are looking for someone like you to help them, because they're like, this is going on LinkedIn, and people are like, oh, I didn't even know this existed. Tell them, where
yeah,
can they
yeah, I get a
find
lot.
you?
Yeah, I get a lot of that. So I'm very active on LinkedIn. So
Hmm.
I post virtually every day on
Hmm.
LinkedIn. Oftentimes, just things about my cases,
Hmm.
just educational. Sometimes it's random things about no longer being a clinical physician. I
Hmm.
only discovered social media a year or so ago, but I've made a lot of really good connections and made a lot of good relationships and
Hmm.
friends and folks like you that are just amazing people. So
Hmm.
um, I've not tiptoed into any other social media yet. I'm not sure that I will,
Hmm.
but LinkedIn's a great place to find me. So just Jeff Willis, MD, on LinkedIn. I'm on every day, so you can send me a connection request, DM, comment on something that I write, and I get back with everyone. I have a website that's
Hmm.
ocmedlegal.com, ocmedlegal.com.
Hmm.
Those are the best two ways to find me. And you can email me at jeff@ocmedlegal.com as well. I'm happy to talk with any physician that is just interested in life outside of medicine.
Hmm.
I benefited a lot from having a coach and having somebody help guide me through that process. And
Hmm.
while I'm not a coach yet at this point, I'm always happy to talk with folks about what I do, how I went through the process, and how happy I am with the decision that I made. It's not for everybody, you know.
Hmm.
I mean, I'm only 46 years old, and I left the bedside at 46 years old. I don't think that's for everybody.
Right.
But the options are out there, and the opportunities are out there. And if
Hmm.
there's anybody that's thinking about it or is curious as to really what went down, I'm a pretty open book and pretty very open to sharing my process and
Absolutely.
how I did it. I'm considering doing some coaching at some point in the future, just because I loved being coached so much, and think that
Hmm.
I think I would like to help others at some point. But right now I'm too busy to do it.
Yeah.
But they can definitely call me, reach out, and I probably already talked to maybe a physician a week
Hmm.
about what I do, just because people find it interesting and different. So, but always happy to talk. Those are the two best ways: is email jeff@ocmedlegal.com, and then on LinkedIn.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So before we go, I just want to say we had some greetings from the San Francisco Bay Area. Hello, it says LinkedIn user. So once we jump off this wonderful conversation, and we'll find out who that LinkedIn user is, we can say hello to that person. Okay, Dr. Willis, this has been a very enlightening conversation. You are the first doc that I've had that's approached it from this standpoint on my lovely, lovely show. I have had another doc who has talked about malpractice coaching, but from your standpoint, and really having doctors being empowered to be on both sides of the medical legal avenue and arena, it's very, very, very encouraging, and also encouraging to know that not only are you there, you're helping your patients, you're helping other physicians, and then there are also additional non-clinical options for you to use your clinical skills out
That's
there.
right.
You are not boxed in, you are not boxed in. So this, I thank you for jumping on and really showing and exploring that side of the non-clinical work that you're doing. Alrighty, before we end this wonderful conversation, do you have any last words for those doctors who are out there watching today?
That's it. Just if you don't know where you are in your journey, but you think there might be something else out there, whether you call me or you talk to somebody else, don't ignore the voice.
Mm,
Listen to it, and explore what's out there a little bit.
mm,
But because the biggest risk you have is being a year from now and still doing the exact same thing and wondering if there's something else. So
yes.
find somebody else or find me, but just talk to somebody. There's plenty of people out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you hear it. There are plenty of people out there. So don't sit there in your cave by yourself thinking that there are no other additional options. There are a lot of doctors, and interestingly so, because I know a lot of us in medicine, especially us in emergency medicine, we're a lot of very siloed people. We
Mm-hmm.
work really, really, we're working with others, but we're really working by ourselves. A lot of docs are willing to talk to you. So reach out to
Absolutely.
us. Reach out to us. We're here. Alrighty. So now I know someone just jumped on at the end and they're like, oh my gosh. I didn't catch all of that great conversation. And I'm like, have no fear. This wonderful, wonderful conversation is available on our Your Caring Docs website. That's URCaringDocs.com. Select podcast. Look, you'll see Dr. Jeff Willis's handsome face. I was going to say beautiful face. If you want me to say beautiful, we'll do that too.
I'll be anything. You can call me whatever you want.
We'll see his handsome face there. Click download this episode, send it to one of your friends, send it to 10 of your friends, your colleagues who are you're sitting there having conversations, trying to figure out, oh my God, is this it? Am I made for more? Can I do more? Yes, you can. That's the answer. Yes, you can. And Dr. Jeff Willis has shown us an additional non-clinical avenue. If you're a doctor and you're like, I'm doing amazing things too, and I want to be highlighted, I'm like, I would love to. So send me an email at drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com to book. And do keep in mind, we are booked out a couple months in advance because of all the wonderful things our colleagues are doing inside and outside of clinical medicine. All right. Now, for those who you're watching and you're looking for a dynamic speaker on stress management and burnout prevention for your next conference, hey, do not hesitate to reach out to me. You can send me an email at drbeckford@yourcaringdocs.com and just put it there looking for a speaker, or you could go to our website and fill out the form to work with me. I would absolutely love to work with you on your next conference. Dr. Willis, thank you so much for taking the time out to be on my show, to highlight what you do, and to bring forth the knowledge that there are additional things that us physicians can do in clinical medicine that are non-clinical based. You
Well,
have a
thank you so
great.
much for the time. Thank you for everything that you're doing. It's amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. My pleasure. My pleasure. All righty, guys. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time. Bye bye.